Hello, I appreciate you for coming back to part 2 of my conversation with Kim Richardson, which we call From Rock Bottom to Life's Purpose. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, and this is From Upside Down to Right Side Up, Tips for the Transition. It is my pleasure to share inspiring stories like Kim's. These women have figured out how to move through life's inevitable trials and tribulations and come out on top in triumph. They help us to know that we are not alone when life turns our own world upside down. In our first segment, Kim told us about her rock bottom moment and what she chose to do to show up differently for herself. She just cracked the curtain on that, and she's going to tell us more. So now we're going to go more deeply into that emotional journey that it all took her on. Hello, Kim.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Not everyone experiences the same circumstances, and we might say, that's not my story. But I'm willing to bet there are elements of your story that will resonate with many. And most importantly, I believe we resonate with the emotions that we go through. So I'd love for you to share that part of your story, the emotional journey, and how you overcame that vulnerable, hard to say, time in your life.
Well, as you had kind of left off in the previous segment was, one of the things is feeling deserving. I think so many of us don't feel deserving of all the wonderful things that life have to offer. And that was a piece that needed to be healed. But, when I was at that moment and I didn't know what needed to change, I didn't know the how, I didn't have a clue as to what was wrong. I just knew it wasn't right. And so, it was a moment of complete, total surrender. I just said, I give it up. I give it up to my higher power, which, for me is God and the angels. And I said, I need help. And, I got the help I needed. It miraculously showed up in the forms of different people that showed up in my life, different workshops and retreats and things like this it was like angel wings came and scooped me up and said, you're doing these things. And as I started learning and growing and kind of picking apart and walking the journey backwards, which was a long, hard journey to go back through, drudging through all of that old stuff that was, I was holding on to for so long. There's emotions of just fear because it's a big change. There's emotions of anger that you have to work through. I realized a lot of these things that I was holding on to I was manifesting ways in my body, for example, with my weight, struggling with my weight and being overweight for most, of my earlier, or I should say midlife. But, always going up and down in that way, just manifesting in ailments. And I was on so many medications and antidepressants and all these things. And it was all tied to those emotional pieces that needed to be healed. So walking the journey through these workshops, through these retreats, journaling, really having it, just starting with an awareness, like that first awareness, hey, this isn't working for me. And then having the awareness to say, I really haven't been treating myself so well. I really haven't been loving myself unconditionally. And with that, I like to say that I have, I imagine a little girl living in my heart space. And, I now, because I haven't always treated her well, I haven't protected her, I haven't kept her, safe, and she hasn't felt loved. And so it's now my mission in my life to really protect her, treat her with nothing but unconditional love. When we all have that negative self-talk that comes up, sometimes, and we make a mistake or something happens and that dialogue happens up here, I take a moment to shift it because that dialogue is talking to that little girl. And I would never say those things to my own child. So really having that shift was huge for me. And it's something I still practice. Another piece was setting boundaries. I realized that, as we talked about previously, was, people pleasing everyone and not being able to say no. And so I learned, because I'm protecting her, to say no. If it doesn't bring me joy, I'm going to say no. And that's really, I stick to that. And I make sure that I honor her. Sometimes I have to check in with her and say, hey, how do you feel about this? Will you be on board with this? And if she gives me oh, I don't know, I think for a second, I stop and I go, wait, is this fear talking? Because sometimes fear will stop us. But if it's really something she doesn't feel good about, then I don't do it either, right? And so it's really a tool that I use daily. And my husband, he knows when we have conversations, and, he'll check in and he'll say, well, sometimes he's joking about it. How's your little girl feeling? I'm like, well, she's feeling pretty good right now, because that's how serious I am about it.
That is so interesting that you've shared that with your husband and he's on board with it. I think that's amazing. I think that's amazing that he is in touch with that as well. So it sounds to me like the man you're married to now is not following the same patterns as the men you were involved with before. Is that true?
Oh, he's so wonderful. One of the things I realized is I had to break my old patterns. I had to love myself in such a way, as an example of how I wanted other people to love me, and heal the past so I could quit making other people pay for that. And all these pieces kind of fell together. And once I became the mirror of what I wanted in this life, it was like an angel divine thing too, brought us together. And it was really interesting because like one of the first, I met him on like a camping weekend. So it was interesting, but I don't remember if it was the first day or second day, but we were kind of driving together and with a group, we were the large group of people. And he says, my life is pretty good. I really am happy where I'm at in my life. And most men that I had been around, they complain, so that was the first thing. I'm like, well, he's really happy in his life. But I said to him, the first thing I said, I'm done with drama in my life. So, I don't allow anyone into my life that's going to add drama. I want people that add value, that I lift them up, that they lift me up, that it's unconditional love on both ways. And, we really do have a beautiful relationship. I had to heal all of that in order to attract what it is that I got.
I love that you just shared that, because it is so important that we become the reflection, right, of what we want in our lives, that we love ourselves enough, that we feel worthy, we feel confident, and we attract that back. So what I love about this story is that there is, for those who are watching, who are thinking, I could never have that too, I want you to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And that light, in my humble opinion, comes from within us. And when that shows, then things start to fall into place. And if you allow, as Kim talked about, the healing to start to happen, and the emotions, I loved what you shared. When those emotions came up for you, how you worked to overcome them, to acknowledge them, and to embrace them for the value they bring to your learning, so that you can move forward. I just love that story. Thank you for sharing that, Kim. I really appreciate your honesty and your vulnerability. And in our next segment, I can't wait for this one. I want to hear some more of the wisdom, because you shared a few of the things that helped you get through, but I'd love for you to share more of the wisdom that has come to you through these experiences. Will you do that for us?
I can't wait to come back.
Oh, good. Thank you. And for everyone else, again, stay tuned for the end of my conversation with Kim Richardson. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan. Till next time.